My name is Jesper Olsen. I'm the program manager here at Firesoft, and it's been my distinct pleasure to organize this webinar. And I want to thank you all for setting some of your precious time aside to listen to our recent experience with the new normal and working remotely and doing so effectively, or efficiently rather. And a special thanks also goes out to our partner Microsoft. They've been immensely helpful setting up this webinar and making sure that everything came together as well. And with that said, in today's webinar, just to set the context just a little bit, we and Microsoft will be covering the ins and out of what technologies are available to efficiently manage your remote work and how it can be done in practice. And furthermore, we'll be touching upon some of the major challenges that we've encountered through our work in this new normal. But before we start, let's just go into like a brief introduction to the house rules. So as you can see here, the recording will be available for all attendees, for all the attendees that are in the meeting, and then you should be able to basically just download the presentation afterwards using the live event that should be on everybody's calendar. However, if there should be some unforeseen problem with it or something like that, then we'll also be uploading our recording to our website, and then we'll inform you accordingly. Now, with this live event or this webinar, that also means that you have a very, very easy way to ask questions out in the Q&A section out to the right of your screen. And then I would recommend that you just ask your questions as soon as they pop up, because we have like an entire feed out there that the moderators will manage in the background and make sure that we can get as many of the questions at the end of this presentation, where we've set aside 10 to 15 minutes to go through as many as we can. Now you can be anonymous, you can write name, everything goes. We'll be handling as many questions as we can. But enough about the rules. Let's go on to meet our speakers. So the speakers of today will be our very own president at Firesoft, Bob Duffy. We also have our modern workplace specialist, Jagdish, and then Microsoft very own cloud solution architect, Trudine. But Bob, why don't you kick it off and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, hello everyone, and thanks for being here today. I don't know about you, but this work from home, or what I like to call work from anywhere, is starting to feel like the new normal, and that's why we're moving events like these online. I've spent the last 2 weeks in a true work from anywhere environment. I traveled by RV down the Washington and Oregon coast, dialing in through hotspots from everywhere, from the beaches of the Oregon coast to the mountain lakes up at Crater Lake. And I don't think I'll ever want to go back to 5 days a week in the office. And I'm sure that many of you and your company's employees, feel the same way. Remote work scenarios are going to continue at a much higher rate for at least the next year, and I think more likely will become very semi-permanent for many. So it's time to stop thinking about IT from the inside out mentality and start to think about everything from the outside in. That means putting in place some of the technologies and tools that we're going to be here to talk about today. Processes that not only increase your end user security and convenience, but also save you that precious IT budget by automating all the things that need to happen. So a little bit about my background. I've got over 30 years of technology consulting experience. I've been consulting to and with Microsoft since the Windows 95 launch back in the fall of 95. It's been a few years, let me say. Back then, I was helping Microsoft scale its customer support systems from 400 concurrent users to 4,000. That was unheard of at the time on a single client server system with remote locations around the country, all over dedicated networks. So things are obviously a lot different now. Over the last years, I've been working with cloud-based businesses and implementing mobile technologies in companies around the world, actually. So I'm here today to tell you how our customers are using the latest Microsoft technologies and leveraging the cloud to help you efficiently manage your distributed users and make your remote users as secure as possible as if they were right there on your corporate network. So Jagadish, why don't you do a quick intro?
Sure, thanks, Bob. Good morning. My name is Jagadish. I've been working with Microsoft Technologies for the last 13 years, primarily helping customers adapt to the latest Microsoft technologies, both on the modern workplace side as well as on the data center side of things. So we helped a lot of customers move from, let's say, Windows 7 to Windows 10, and then we kind of helped customer implement a lot of hybrid cloud management technologies, as well as moving them from on-prem to cloud. So that's a little bit of background on my experience. And I've been here with Firesoft for the last 8 years. And one of my goals is to drive solutioning and service delivery for Firesoft, both on the modern workplace side as well as on the Azure side of things. So that's about me. And I've been very passionate about helping customers solve their challenges. Shruti, do you want to quickly introduce yourself?
Sure. Hello, all. My name is Shruti, and I'm a cloud solution architect with Microsoft. So before I introduce, I feel this is a great opportunity for me to work with Firesoft and present this solution to you. So about my experience, I have been a cloud solution with Microsoft for about 3 years now, and I work very closely in migrating to Azure and cloud adoption. So I have done this for some time, and I feel that cloud is what is the future now. And with that, I will hand it over to Jesper.
Thank you very much, Shruti. So what I'll be going over briefly here is just the agenda of what you guys will be seeing today. So right off the bat, we'll have Bob discussing the current changing in the landscape, as well as the associated customer challenges that we're seeing out there specifically. Then Shruti will be discussing what is available in terms of Microsoft solutions and the optimizations that can be done when we're doing these remote work scenarios. Jagdish will then be following up with an actual showcasing of how the solution we've put in place functions in action. So a real life case study that we'll be going over with architecture and everything. Then we'll be going over the assessment offer that we put in place and how the first steps are made in order to step towards this cloud journey, and with the associated outcomes and goals, of course. Then we'll briefly go over the funding opportunities that has become available now when Firesoft and Microsoft sort of banded together to make this possible, and then lastly we'll be entering the Q&A section where hopefully you'll have a lot of good questions for us. So by all means, fire away. I'll be managing the feed over here on the right. So fire away, and then I will hand it over to Bob so he can set the context about who Firesoft is very briefly, and then going directly into the customer challenges. Bob?
Thanks, Jesper. So at Firesoft, we are digital transformation experts. We are a gold partner in Microsoft in North America, and we were named their Cloud Partner of the Year 2 years in a row. We help our customers reimagine how they bring together people, data, and processes to create value for their customers and maintain a competitive advantage in this digital-first world. Partnering with Firesoft helps organizations quickly and successfully transform into a digital company by providing the industry skills and expertise as you need them. So the specific skills that are needed for each of the technologies and tools, these are things we're doing over and over in other places, and you don't have to, have your people stumble through them one at a time, learning them. We can really accelerate those initiatives and get your digital state, in fast forward. Our core competencies are 3 pillars: the modern work and security, which is what we're talking about today; the Azure cloud, which we're also talking about today. You'll find that much of what we're talking about in managing your users is driven off the cloud; and modern applications and data. So let's get started. just a little background in case you haven't heard what's been happening in the world. Obviously, our world's been turned upside down, and you know that's bad for all of us. We're in a worldwide recession, etc. But for cyber criminals, business is hopping. Work from anywhere has really opened up a number of new vulnerabilities, and they're being exploited. And you know, this is one of the reasons we're here today.
Well, so for all intents and purposes, like all the remote and non-technical users are especially vulnerable to malicious attacks. So the need for state-of-the-art cybersecurity is paramount in today's environment. IT needs to shift their perspective from an inside-out approach to security and compliance to an outside-in approach instead. And they need to tackle these challenges with budgets that are likely to be shrinking in the coming months. So what are some of the challenges that we're specifically facing out in the world? So just jump on to the next slide, Jagdish. So with the core business operation shifted from outside the corporate network, IT has some new challenges. They need to be prepared for an ever-increasing malicious attacks that are present. Yet even with business users working from home, they need to ensure compliance is maintained and that users can access the apps that they need and keep their and their customers' data protected at all times. This is paramount. So with remote users, the old methods of securing the perimeter aren't enough. They need to tightly manage the remote devices that users are using to access the corporate information and applications. And even simple things like issuing a user a new device or onboarding a new user are complicated because they can't just stop by IT and pick it up. So finally, with the recession comes the inevitable budget tightening. Like we've all seen it, like unfortunate events of COVID that we're trying to keep up with. We're trying to keep the same operational level while tightening our budget. So IT has to be prepared to run a very, very lean shop, one where fewer resources can do even more work. And with the ups and downs in the business, even more employees will be offboarding and onboarding in the coming months, and teams consolidate and expand. So how can we leverage the existing technologies to enable this shift? And that's why we have Shruti here with us today and give that Microsoft perspective so she can tell us about some of the Microsoft products that can help us address these specific challenges. So Shruti, over to you.
Thanks, Jesper. So like Jesper just brought up about the vulnerabilities and security, how important and critical it is, I will bring you some of our solutions or technologies that we offer that can help you with securing your environment, make sure it's not very vulnerable. To start with, I will talk about securing the identity. So we have a cloud-based solution here, cloud-based identity management solution, that's Azure Active Directory. Azure Active Directory lets you sync your current users from your Active Directory into cloud. So this gives you, an option to secure your enterprise application, make sure you use Azure AD for any type of authentication, which also means, you could use Azure AD features like MFA, multi-factor authentication, and conditional access, which limits you and expands your, security feature, which means you could say, okay, I'm going to limit it to certain locations. Only these locations should be able to access my resources or applications, or also limited to your trusted IPs. Only these IPs should be allowed. So this is just a few examples of what Azure AD offers. It can go in depth to secure your environment. So after identity, I would like to talk about a security monitoring solution, Azure Sentinel. It is a very new and a very popular solution that is available today. So it is capable of collecting data from devices, applications, infrastructure, based out of anywhere on-prem or any cloud that you host it in. So this gives it a wide scope from where you can collect the data and makes it easier to detect alerts which was not, which could get away undetected in the earlier days, right? It is backed up by Azure AI platform and hence can use the rapid response to get your incidents resolved. So that's about Azure Sentinel, very high level architecture on what it can offer. Now talking about what data protection options does Microsoft provide you. To start with that, one is Azure Information Protection. So in today's world, you would want to, might have a document where I'll put in my bank details and everything. So where these are all sensitive information, you do not want them to be shared with, everybody without that sensitivity that comes into picture, right? So that's where your admin could actually put a label and protect your data saying that, okay, these are sensitive information, label them, mark them, make sure these are secure. And another option that we have is Windows Information Protection. So, in today's world and organization, it is very easy, mistakes happen where it might not be an intention of an employee to share private information, but it can happen where, social media, where you post, you to show visibility, you post your data there. But what if somebody just posts something, the data that should not be shared? This is where Windows Information Protection comes into picture, where it protects your data from being accidentally leaked, right? So that gives you a big advantage and avoids human errors, right? And then we talk about Microsoft Threat Protection. Microsoft Threat Protection is again a very wide scope of solution that we offer, which starts with Defender, Azure Threat Protection, and it starts with Office security, cloud security. So with Microsoft Threat Protection, you have an option to protect, control your data, analyze your data, see how it is going to be responding to threats. Now moving on. So this is about how Azure will protect the data. Now what about the devices, right? So organization is not only about data, but also devices. You might be providing laptops, machines to your users. You have to make sure your devices, when exposed to employees and everywhere, it's secure. So that's where Intune gives you a wide scope to protect your devices. Intune is a mobile device management and a mobile application management solution, along with managing your apps and stuff and other things. Now here with Intune, you could actually have it integrated to your Azure Active Directory. Using this, you could actually manage on who accesses and how your device is managed, what kind of policy you apply to the device management. You decide how your device in your organization, any device, how is it going to be managed? Now, Intune, along with being a mobile device management solution itself, also lets you use a third-party mobile device management at the same time. So you could have Intune for your app management, and you could also have another solution for mobile device management on your machine at the same time. So it does not tie you up saying that, okay, this is the only solution that you have to offer or you have to use. It gives you the option to utilize it as per your convenience. Now, just as we spoke about device management, applications that run in your organization is also of equal importance. Now, when we talk about application deployment, Intune comes into picture there too, right? So you can do device management and also application management using Intune, which means you can control your application using Intune policies. Intune, so let's say you want to download multiple applications, make sure everything is, the Office 365 suite for that matter. You want all of them to be deployed as soon as your machine turns up. Intune lets you do that. You can manage all your applications using Intune. Now, Windows Store of Business, what that lets you do is, of course, I'm sure most of the customers already use it for downloading business applications. With Windows Store of Business can be integrated with Intune, and you could actually download or purchase volume applications for your organization, right? So that's why, everywhere Intune is used very widely, and it's a very good option for anybody who wants to have control over, remote devices, and especially in today's world, right? You have users working throughout across the world and have working from home, working from anywhere, what Bob just brought up. So this is the option that we give that makes it very easy. Along with that, we also give you an option of device provisioning. So how tedious it is when a new employee comes in. He has to get a new machine, and then you have to make sure he's able to set it up, go to IT, make sure everything is there. Are the drivers there? Is the OS downloaded? And it is a pain. It can be a real pain for users or employees who is just setting up. Now we take all that away from you. We say, okay, let's just make the user productive. Let's just have them set up the machine, pre-configured with the OS, pre-configured with the drivers, plus integrated with Intune for the app downloads, let's say. Right? So that definitely makes your life easier, where there is no manual intervention required. So that's about our technology and functions that Microsoft offers. I'm sure this would have given you some clarity on what are your options when it comes to securing your environment. But we spoke about that, and what will be coming to your mind is, okay, but who is going to spend so much? How much will I have to spend for all these services? You'd be surprised to know it's very much possible you already have these services included in your current licenses. So one of the things is what we advocate is taking advantage of your existing investment. So as an example, I'll bring up, so let's say my M365. M365 includes most of the Microsoft features, right? So like Teams, WED. So I'm sure most of you know Teams, what it is used for. And WED is our Windows Virtual Desktop, is our VDI solution that accelerates your remote users to work from home. So imagine that is also included in your M365 licenses. So if you'd want to set that up, so you'll have to, if you have your M365 licenses, just go ahead, because you're not paying anything extra for licenses there. That's just a few examples. If you have Windows licenses, Defender might be already included in it. So identifying what is it that you can take advantage from your existing licenses, existing investment that you have, is an important aspect of using these features. Now, license optimization. So it is possible, you are not there on a license perspective yet. It could just be a few optimization on your licenses, few add-ons on your licenses, and you'll get there in no time. So these are the flexibilities and dynamic addition and removing of license offers that Microsoft brings up with you. So any feature that you're interested in, if you're not aware of, just bring it up to us, and we can help you, give you a feasible and seamless experience on moving your licenses. Now, moving forward, so we see a lot of customers when they try to move to cloud, they always feel it's very expensive. Do I really need to spend so much on my, let's say, compute machines, on my storage? Maybe I could just put all my data in my tapes as I already have now. Why should I choose Azure? Just from a cost perspective, there are a few options which customers, they're not aware of, or they tend to ignore. So cost optimization is always possible in Azure. One such option is reserved instances and Azure hybrid benefits. Reserved instances lets you reserve. So let's say your workload is going to run for a year, 2 years, 3 years. So what you can do is you can actually reserve your instances for a year or 3 years and bring that cost down drastically, right? And plus, let's say you have your software assurance licenses already. Bingo, you can also add that on. And when you have your, let's say, machine set up on Azure, you could bring your existing licenses without, spending more for your Windows licenses or machines that you spin up. But mind it, reserved instances, reservation per se is not limited to compute. It can extend to storage and other services. Let's say you're now talking about, let's say you use your machines only for 12 hours. You're not even using it for 24 hours. And Azure charges you based on how many hours is your machine running. With that, we also offer you a solution. Let's say your office hours ends every day 8 p.m. You can set up an auto shutdown and say, okay, shut down my machines every day at 8 p.m. So you actually save money when your machines are shut down. Now, scaling. So let's say you have multiple instances of VMs running, or you don't want to have those many instances. You want to scale as per example, CPU utilization, only when my usage is high. So those are the scenarios, again, where you can optimize your cost. Don't scale up until there is a requirement. Only scale up when you need to scale up. Now, that is from a machine perspective. From a VM size perspective, we again give you flexibility to scale your machines and their sizes seamlessly, easily. So put it on a smaller size when you don't want it, put it on a bigger size when you need it, depending on the workload that you are running. So again, I'm hoping that this gives you a idea of what kind of leverage you can get from the investments that you make, or that you already have for that matter. With that, now we spoke about the investment, we spoke about the technology. Now, how would you utilize, how would this fit in your architecture, right? That is what Jagadish is going to talk about. So with that, I'll let you speak, Jagadish.
Sure. Thanks, Shruti. So one of the biggest challenge that we kind of get posed internally at Firesoft is, hey, there is some customer challenges, which kind of Bob talked about. And there are a lot of Microsoft products and technology that Microsoft has built over the period of years. Now, how do we take those technology stack, design a solution to address our customer challenges? So that's what our primary focus is. And if we look at the customer challenges broadly, it kind of falls under three categories. The first one is, how do we take advantage of their existing investment and drive down cost? We all know kind of everybody is challenged on the budget. So we want to make sure how we can design a solution which will not kind of add additional cost to customer, but leveraging their existing investment. So that's one of the goals that we kind of take. And the second one is more on how do we reduce the IT team's time and make sure that they are working more efficiently. So we all know that, okay, right now there's a challenge that everybody is looking at how they can optimize and make sure the team is very efficient. So we are going to be talking about how do we take these objectives, map it to the Microsoft solution that Shruti just discussed, and how we can build a whole-fledged architecture and a solution which would work in your environment. So that's what we are going to talk about in the next slides. There are multiple products that Microsoft offers. I'll be kind of going through a very high level on how these products can co-work and coexist and how we can architect a solution. Of course, I will not be kind of going in detail on each of these technologies because that may not that might need another like a day or two. But what we can do is I can paint you a picture on how these technologies works well. And we have seen this work well in our customer environments. So now let's look at the traditional IT and how that has been evolving. So traditionally, most companies have their data center with their on-premises management tools like Active Directory, System Center Configuration Manager, SCCM, or their file servers. And they might have the traditional products like SCOM or SCVMM. So these are some of those on-prem management tools that most companies have. And the traditional way of working is the devices pretty much stays in the local area network. So pretty much they come to office, people work in the office, so they are in a local area network. Now we all know this is kind of changing. And now the people have pretty much moved outside the organization and they are all working remote, and pretty much they are doing a VPN connection back to the network. Now, the biggest challenge here is now IT will not be in a position to manage these devices and secure them unless the devices are VPN'd in with the traditional setup. So this is one of the biggest challenge. We always had this challenge, but this was a very small subset of the users. Either it could be the sales org, which usually works remote. So, and we all know how much of challenges we have just to maintain the patches and security on those devices. Now, the whole environment and landscape is changing. Most of your users might continue to work remote for quite some time. Now, the biggest challenge is how do we ensure that we can still secure and manage these devices. Now, let's say when you bring in a partner like Firesoft, so what we can pretty much do is we can quickly spin up your cloud Azure subscription, and we kind of quickly turn on your Azure Active Directory. And once we have your Azure Active Directory, pretty much your identity is synced back to cloud, and your Azure subscription is connected back to your on-premises data center. So once we have that, and pretty much you can really spin up Office 365 and other Office 365 products like Microsoft Teams for collaboration. And I do know that most customers are pretty much in this scenario. Pretty much you have your Azure Active Directory already spinned up, your identity is getting synced to cloud, you already have your Office 365 and collaboration tools like Microsoft Teams. So with this setup, your users are actually connecting back to cloud and they are accessing resources from cloud. So it is not something new that you need to introduce. It's just that we can expand this landscape, add additional tools on top of it, and you can quickly address the challenges that we currently see. So let's see how to address that. Before, I think in the March and April timeframe, the biggest challenge that most customers came back to us was they want to ensure that the users can remotely access the corporate applications hosted on on-premise data center or on the cloud when they are working remote. So what we could do is, since most customers already have Office 365 or M365 SKUs, we can quickly spin up my Windows Virtual Desktop on the cloud. And Windows Virtual Desktop or WVD is a DaaS solution where you can quickly turn on these VMs on the cloud, and pretty much it doesn't take that much time. In fact, I think in just 2 weeks, we could enable WVD solution for almost 10 customers, and we quickly brought all of them back to business, and the users were up and running when COVID just hit back in the March timeframe. So this is a truly scalable solution, desktop as a service solution. And what the biggest advantage that you have here is the image is the corporate image that you would load on your laptop. So the same image can be taken. You do a quick customization and then load it as on the WVD. And now your users have access to a secure cloud PC, which is going to help you on a long run as well. Like in case if you wanted to deploy a desktop as a service solution or an VDI solution, you already have that ready. Now, we passed this hurdle. Now, what's next, right? Now, what if there is new users who is coming on board? How do we provision those users? Because now IT is no longer on-prem, and every company is looking at how do we manage those kind of scenarios. So traditionally, the hardware vendors ship their devices back to on-prem labs, and then your IT team would reimage their machines with SCCM. They would have task sequences, then they would join the machine to local Active Directory, load all the core applications on top of them, and they would issue those devices to the users. But that is going to be challenged because now people are not coming on-prem. How do we ensure that the users can get their devices with less of IT touching those devices? So what we have here is Windows Autopilot service, which is currently on cloud. It's a Microsoft solution. We can quickly turn on Windows Autopilot service, and we can set up something called configuration profiles, and we can kind of import all the corporate devices SKU, their hardware IDs to Windows Autopilot, And once we have those devices identified as corporate devices in Windows Autopilot service, and once we have the configuration profiles created, what we can do is we can really ship the devices from the hardware OEM directly to the end users. And when the time they turn on their machine, the device would, and they connect to internet, the device would directly talk to the Azure subscription. It will talk to the Windows Autopilot service. And based on the configuration that we have set up, the device would be directly added to Azure Active Directory. And what we can do is we can also bring in device management solutions like Microsoft Intune. So once the device is added to Azure Active Directory, we create specific rules. Then the machine would directly be pushed with an Intune client. And from Intune, we can start managing those devices in terms of sending out policies, as well as sending out applications from Intune. So with this kind of setup, we can truly build a no-touch device provisioning scenario. And this can pretty much happen right now. If you just have your Azure subscription, we can build this solution for you, and it could be ready in the next few days, right? It is that simple. Now, the device that's getting shipped is auto-configured with your corporate policies. The image is kind of customized. It's added to Microsoft Intune, and all the policies would flow here. So these are policies which would traditionally be deployed from local Active Directory. We can have similar policies deployed both from Azure Active Directory and Microsoft Intune. And we can also use Intune for your patch management. So now that's kind of taken care as well, and it's getting delivered from cloud. Now, it doesn't just stop here. The next challenge is how do we ensure that the users now have their device shipped, they are logging in? How do we ensure that we add additional security on the identity side? We can pretty much turn on Azure Active Directory MFA, multi-factor authentication. That's pretty native to Azure Active Directory. So you may not need a third-party solution just for MFA, because now that's kind of built into Azure Active Directory. And what we can also do is we can introduce additional hardware-based security, which is called Windows Hello for Business. This Windows Hello for Business is a passwordless authentication. So basically what we can do is we can enable biometrics as well as the multi-factor method, where the users can either sign in with their biometrics with the facial recognition or through their fingerprint. Or the other option that we do have available is logging into the machine with a PIN number, just like how you would do it on your phone. The biggest advantage here, logging in with a PIN number rather than a password, is these pins are specific to the machine. So even if the PIN is compromised, the bad guys need to have access to the machine to log in. They really cannot do the pass the hash, or they cannot do kind of log into a different machine and then use the same PIN as that user. So that's the additional security that you can build on the end user side on the device itself. And those things are pretty much possible with all cloud based solutions like Intune. So now we talked about Microsoft Intune, Autopilot, and Azure Active Directory. Now, what we can also do is turn on Azure Sentinel at the cloud, and Azure Sentinel would now be your additional security monitoring tool on the cloud, and it would deliver, you have a more of proactive monitoring happening from cloud. So this is something which we can quickly build. And once you have this kind of setup, you can really expand and move on to other tools that Microsoft offers for advanced threat protection, as well as delivering SaaS-based applications, which is more as a Windows Store for Business, as well as Azure Advanced Threat Protection. So I know this is kind of a lot of things that we're talking about, but all this can be seamlessly integrated. And once integrated and implemented the right way, you can truly manage all of this from cloud, and you're no longer dependent on your on-premises management tools. So pretty much, if you guys wish, I know a lot of customers, they talk about they wanted to reduce their on-premises footprint. They wanted to ensure that their file servers needs to be migrated to cloud. They don't want to leverage on their on-prem file share. So you guys can consider even decommissioning your on-premises tools and purely manage things from cloud. So you don't have SCCM or you don't need file servers on-prem. The users can directly connect to internet and you can have a full-fledged solution right here. And even when the users come back to on-prem, still they can be managed either through a hybrid approach or purely from the cloud. So that's something which is possible, and we have implemented this. So I would probably turn it over to Bob. Bob, do you want to quickly talk about how we kind of help a customer implementing this specific solution?
Yeah, I hope my audio's back. So we'll talk about how we went into the Office of the State Treasurer in Georgia. The Georgia governor had mandated that all state agencies really step up their efforts to strengthen their cybersecurity defense, and as their agencies were being targeted routinely by cyber criminals across the state. And at the same time, he mandated, of course, that technology organizations tighten their budgets by 20%. So the challenge was how to increase security while at the same time reducing cost. The Office of the State Treasurer, turned to us and took that mandate to heart and had us work with them to assess their existing infrastructure and the tools they were using, how to manage their users, how to manage their devices. And what the assessment found was that they could take steps to improve their already very extensive security. They were already probably the most secure agency in the state, but they could still take additional steps, and they could also bring in automation to help them manage their users and devices. So what we did is design a solution that would allow them to efficiently manage those devices completely remotely without having IT even touch the devices. And that's what we're going to tell you about. Jagadish, do you want to walk through how we did this work?
Sure, thanks, Bob. So when we were approached, again, we started with a quick assessment to understand where the customer is in terms of their on-prem solutions as well as the solutions on the cloud. We could quickly come up with a discovery data, and then we designed a solution with all the Microsoft solution stack. So we don't have to introduce additional third-party tools and add additional cost, because driving down cost is one of the key challenge here. So what we did was we quickly designed a solution and we implemented it. So the key here is pretty much we talked about most of these items in the previous slides, but I just wanted to highlight a couple of things. One is on the Windows Autopilot. So this customer had an approach that they wanted to move to Windows Surface devices, and the Surface devices are going to be the new normal. So what we could do is we could quickly spin up Windows Autopilot service. We spinned up Intune, Azure Active Directory, and then we set up the configuration profiles. And now the devices are getting shipped directly to the user. And by the time they turn on the device, now it gets configured, and it is now in compliance with the security policies that the Office of the State Treasurer has defined in the cloud. So that's something which we could achieve as a no-touch device provisioning solution for them. And since they are Office of the State Treasurer and a lot of funds flow through their agencies, they want to make sure the devices are fully secure with hardware-backed security as well. So what we could do is we kind of turned on Windows Hello for Business, and since there was a specific requirement on additional hardware, we could integrate it with a third-party solution with Windows Hello for Business as well as Intune and Azure Active Directory. So the users can log into the machine only when they have a key fob connected to it, and they authenticate it through Windows Hello for Business, and then they would have access to the machine. So those are the additional security layers that we can build. So anything that we are talking here, it is not just a standalone solution. It can be fully integrated and work as a seamless solution. It can also be integrated with your existing third-party tools in case if you still wanted to consider using those third-party tools. These solutions can be integrated to work in conjunction with your existing third-party tools as well. So that's something which we could achieve. We also did the Azure Sentinel for security monitoring and proactive security monitoring. So that's something which we could do. And Bob, do you want to quickly talk about the business outcomes of this implementation?
Sure. So the Office of the State Treasurer is now able to ship devices directly to their end users. And when the user connects, their devices are configured for use. securely, and they're enrolled in Intune for management for the future security patches and updates. This allows their IT team to manage all of their user devices while still maintaining a very, very high level of security. For identity and authorization, they went a step further and implemented a passwordless authentication system that requires their users to have a key fob plugged into their specific device before allowing them to access their OST systems. So, just as Jagadish mentioned, there are ways to take security, end user security, even a step further, and it's relatively straightforward and easy to implement these things. The technology's there, that just needs to be configured and implemented. So the end result that they had is that it was just what they hoped for: increased security with lower IT costs, and now they're a model for other agencies within the state to follow, and they're actually touting it that way within the state. In addition, we've gone and packaged these solution templates up so that we can use them with our other clients. So we have template policies for Intune and Sentinel, et cetera, things that can really help accelerate, putting this kind of infrastructure in place. This was such a success that Microsoft is writing this project up as a case study that's going to be presented at the 2020 Inspire, virtually, of course, but that'll be something to look for. Next. Just to touch on real quickly, whether or not this kind of solution is specific to government at all. What we would say, and our experience has shown, is that absolutely is not true. These approaches are applicable to the other verticals that we work in, that all have challenging security requirements, challenging and unique requirements: energy, manufacturing, financial services, retail, and healthcare. All of these industries, they have their unique security and data protection challenges, but the solutions, the challenges that they face, the common challenges they face, can be addressed with these technologies. Just need to be configured and implemented correctly, right? So how do you go about implementing these approaches? Just like with OST, it starts with an assessment of your current environment, your current tools, and where you are and where you want to go. Jagadish, you want to tell us what an assessment really looks like in detail?
Sure, thanks, Bob. So when we did this case study, we kind of really took this back to Microsoft, and Microsoft was very excited about what we could do for our customer, and our customers love it. So internally, kind of we partnering with Microsoft, we spin up a program where we can take this to multiple customers. So that way it could be quickly done in your environment, but it all starts with assessment. So we kind of designed a program, which is kind of a 3-day assessment. So what we do is, in this first day, we would kind of kick off the engagement. We will do a discovery. We have pretty much automated some of these discoveries. So we kind of have some artifacts that we would run, and we would quickly collect data. And the second day, we would do the analysis of your existing environment. We would document your existing state, and we would also document what would be your future state based on your existing tools, challenges, and your roadmap. And in the day 3, we would quickly do the presentation on how you could implement this in your existing environment. Of course, all of this is done remotely. So we just kind of execute this remotely and then help you understand how this can be implemented in a quick 3-day assessment. So these assessments are kind of very focused, and it has key deliverables. So one of the deliverables that you'll be getting as part of this is the documentation of your existing current state. You'll also get a roadmap on how you can mature your device management and security strategy. And you'll also get a clear plan from us on what are the cost optimization options available for you to drive down cost. So these are the key deliverables on this assessment. Bob, do you want to quickly talk about how to get this?
Sure. So if you're interested in finding out, what this would look like in your specific environment, the assessment is the step to take, right? And this is provided to you at no cost. 3 days of deep dive to get you a roadmap that'll give you the steps you can take to a more secure and automated, cost-saving world, right? This is fully funded by Microsoft and Firesoft. We're ready to do this for you. Then you can make your plans from there. And if you need help along the way, we'll be there to help you along the way. But either way, you've got your journey mapped forward for you. So that's really what we wanted to tell you today. We're going to spend the next few minutes kind of addressing some questions that may have popped up during this call, and just tell you what things we've what challenges we've faced, etc. Jesper?
Yeah, thank you, Bob. And yeah, thanks everyone for sitting through all this information. We do have some question that popped up here, and I think the first one that I'm just going to publish here is mostly for Shruti specifically. The question is fairly basic. So, is Azure Active Directory included in the M365 licenses?
Azure Active Directory has multiple editions to it, which starts with free Office 365 editions and P1 and P2. So free edition is included with any subscription, which could be Dynamics, Azure, Office 365. Free is included with all of them. And Office 365 edition is included with Office 365 E1, E2, E3 licenses. But for P1, P2, which includes additional threat protection and security features, that is included with M365 E5 license. I hope that clarifies.
Oh, I have to unmute myself still. All right, so the next question I have here is probably for Jagdish specifically, because it's like, how long does it take to set up this solution from end to end? Jagdish, do you want to grab that?
Sure, definitely. Thanks, Jesper. And I think that's a very good question. It really depends on what you wanted to set up in your environment and what should be the depth that you should get into, because this can really get to very minute details and you can really implement a full-fledged management solution. And it also depends on what plans that you have on your roadmap. So I would say typically in a small environment, it probably takes about 4 to 6 weeks. But that's why we kind of start always with assessment, because we need to understand what's your existing tools, what are the third-party solutions in play, how we can put together a solution by integrating all those third-party tools and work seamlessly for you. So I would say probably there's not a direct answer, but I would say probably 3 to 6 weeks to just start turning on and getting this configured out of the box. But to make it work really in your environment and add value, we really need to understand a little bit more by going through an assessment. So that's why we always wanted to start with an assessment, and Microsoft is sponsoring this assessment for you.
Yeah, and I would just add that of course, what the assessment's going to do is lay out a roadmap of steps, and each of those steps can be taken in phases. And some of those steps you may be ready to take right away, and others you might want to take later in the year or early next year. So that can be planned around that. And so, but just to go back to the OST example, that took 6 weeks from start to finish, from assessment all the way through to implementation, where devices were shipped out directly to their end users and automatically configured. All that took less than 6 weeks.
Awesome, fantastic. All right, so the next one I have here, I should probably publish this one as well, is, let's see. Is it possible to leverage select Azure services along with existing third-party tools? Like I think Jagdish, you touched upon it briefly in the previous question that we have. I don't know if this is more for you or for Shruti. Like the quote is yours.
Sure. So did you want to take that, or you want me to take it?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just add a few things and you could add too. So I would just say when it comes to Azure services getting along with third party, that's definitely possible. But this question, again, gets a little more specific on what tools are we talking about. So like I brought up earlier, right? Even if you have Intune, it can work very well with the third party MDM solution that you have. So yeah, that's it, Jagdish. Do you want to add?
Sure, I think pretty much you're spot on, Shruti. All this can be integrated with existing third-party tools, but we really need to understand what tools we're talking about integration. So we already had a couple of examples on Intune. We talked about a third-party hardware key getting integrated. So all these are possible, but we need to understand a little bit more to give a precise answer. And not to forget, some of these tools does coexist and work with your on-prem solution as well.
Awesome, great. So I have like we're getting actually to the end of the questions, but I have a fairly technical question here that I'm just gonna publish. So, do I need to pay extra for Azure Hybrid Benefits and AHub? I believe this is probably more in your court of things, Shruti.
Yes, so Azure Hybrid Benefits comes into picture when you have your own licenses, which means if you have a software assurance where on Azure you don't want to pay extra for licenses and purchase licenses at that time, and you want to bring your existing licenses, so then of course you're not paying anything extra from what you're already probably paying with software assurance.
Awesome, great. Is there any other questions? I know we're running a little low on time here. Like we've got about 2 minutes left, and my question list sort of ran out. So if you have any last-minute questions, then by all means fire away. I don't know if you guys have some final notes that you want to touch upon. Anyone? Shruti,
Yeah, sure. I'll if any questions come in, certainly interrupt me. But I'll just say that you know, we're excited to be partnering with Microsoft with this initiative. We really, you know, the technology that we're using here and that Microsoft has developed over the last 5 years. I mean, you know, I've been in this business a long time. This stuff is really fantastic. Sentinel is awesome technology, you know, using the power of artificial intelligence to process, you know, all your incoming requests and seeing those patterns happen. The fraud or malicious activity happening is tremendous. So, you know, there's a lot to take advantage of here. And, you know, of course, with Defender and all those technologies, some of the products you might be spending extra money on right now can be reduced. WVD is another really good cost savings option if you need, you know, remote desktop users. So there's ways to save money, and that's the first thing that we're focused on these days when we do that assessment, is figuring out first and foremost how you can start saving some money, right? What can you do? What can you replace in your existing environment? How can you leverage your licenses that you currently have better, that will free up some of that tight budget that you have to go do some other more proactive things that we've talked about here today. So help us, you know, let us come in and help you do that. We're happy to do that assessment, even if there's no plans in place to move forward with it. We want to be your partner and in a long term, and be there, you know, if you do need our help.
Thank you. And I think on that note, like it is 9:30, so I just wanted to say thank you to everyone that attended this webinar. We appreciate your time immensely. As it's said right here, if you have any more questions that pops up during like after you hang up, like by all means send it to my email. It's right down here. The recording will be available for everyone. And yeah, like just like really take advantage of the partnership that we and Microsoft put together with all the funding. Like there's no going wrong here. So like, and I also wanted to thank our speakers, Bob, Jagdish, and Shruti. I appreciate your help immensely. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jesper, and thanks everyone for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Special thanks, Shruti.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks for joining, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye, guys.